My wife and I went to Orlando Informer Universal on December 2nd and 3rd of 2022. We paid about $375 for 2 nights on that Friday night and Saturday night. And that got us in early, and the park was open late. It also got us unlimited food, which is my favorite part. My goal was to try to eat more than the ticket cost. I convinced my family to eat as much as they possibly could as well. So we started our adventure going to the parade. That was pretty cool. And after we got to see a little fisticuffs, a little fight along the way, we went over to Haggart's. And that was the only line we stood in all night, because there were still people there. They hadn't shut down the park yet. But we rode Haggart's, and then from there, we were hungry. So we found a snack stand that was starting to give out good foods that we didn't have to pay for. So we got some churros. Everybody loves a good churro. And they were fresh churros. They hadn't been sitting there all day. And then we got some turkey legs. I love me a good turkey leg. Got some chips, some water, and Powerade. Of course, we had brought a backpack to put some of these items in, because you never know when you're going to be hungry or thirsty at a later point in life. And while we were there, we found some butterbeer. It was my first time I ever had butterbeer, and I think it was just the normal butterbeer, and I wasn't a big fan. So then we walked over to Velocicoaster, and that was a pretty neat experience to be on the Velocicoaster at night, because I had never ridden it at night. And after we were done almost vomiting our turkey legs, we headed over to Wimpy's, and this was the best dinner we had all night. We had some burgers and fries, and of course some chicken fingers. And the best thing we had all night was the Dole Whip. I love me some Dole Whip. I think I had 4 of them that night. Don't tell anybody. So then we went over to Thunder Falls, had us some key lime cheesecakes. We had some pork, beans, and rice plantain platters, and then some chicken, potatoes, and corn platter. We kind of shared some of these. We had some drinks, and the girls had salads because they didn't want to have any meat. Then we went over to Circus McGurkus, had some pizza tots, which were pretty yummy, some tater tots covered with some spaghetti sauce and cheese and pepperoni. It was pretty yummy. They were smaller versions, so they aren't the huge plates, which was kind of nice. I think a couple of people had some apple pie. It didn't look that good, and I tried one bite. Not a fan. Even bigger, not a fan of the pretzel sliders they had there. It was a pretzel bun, which was okay, but then they had this cheese sauce with some weird looking meat that it was funky. I would not recommend eating a pretzel slider. We then switched parks and went over to Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, and we tried every single flavor there was. This was a small line, maybe 5-minute wait. Between the 6 of us had 17 cups of ice cream. The least favorite was the Earl Tea one. I thought I was eating clotted cream, and then my brother said, "No, that's the Earl Grey. No wonder it didn't taste so good." After we finished our ice cream, we said farewell to Sarah. She was ready to go to bed, and we headed over to the Hopping Pot and got some drinks. They had butterbeer all 3 ways, the frozen, hot, and regular. I think my favorite was the frozen. Then we had some fishy green ale, some Aussie fizzy orange juice, which I really liked, and some pumpkin juice, which my wife liked, and some gilly water. After that, we rode Men in Black way too many times, to the point where we had to stop because some of us were going to vomit. Went over to the Simpsons and had some corn dogs. Corn dogs are delicious. And my niece had to get some donuts. After riding as many rides as we could cram into the time, being how it was nearing 1 a.m. and way past my bedtime, it was nighty-night time. Day 2 started off with a bang. We got to see the Mannheim Steamroller. That was an awesome concert. We got to see them for free. Parks closed down. We hung around a snack stand because we wanted some ices and some churros and some chips and more Powerade. Because of course we brought a backpack again and took some of these with us to go. Then we headed over to Louie's, got some cannolis, which were okay. The pizza was okay. Some fettuccine alfredo and spaghetti and some salad. And of course we needed some sodas. Then we went to Finnegan's and had some wet bread. This bread pudding was pretty tasty. We had some pierogies along with some other stuff that was in the buffet line. It was pretty tasty dinner. On the way up to go to ride some Harry Potter rides, we headed over to Richter's and got a couple shakes because, need some ice cream to fill in the gaps. We headed over to the ice cream parlor in Harry Potter Land. and limited ourselves. We only had 12 cups of ice cream this time. And then we went over to Leaky Cauldron, got some plates. They had some good shepherd's pie and some other stuff that I can't really recall, so it must not have been that good. But of course they had the drinks again, so we had to try some of those. Then we rode Men in Black a couple more times, and of course had to stop because the vomit would have been coming out. So we went over to the Simpsons ride and had some more corn dogs. Corn dogs were awesome. Now there's a hot dog stand over there that says there's a foot-long hot dog. This is the nastiest hot dog I think I ever had in my life. And I wouldn't buy that ever, ever, ever. It was gross. I took one bite and threw it away because it was nasty. I think my brother thought the same thing. While we were in Simpsons lands, I got me a banana squishy. I had to think of my son Tavin. He loves Minions and Minions love bananas. So the banana squishy, that was a pretty tasty, refreshing treat. Then we headed over to Bumblebee Man's Tacos. Got some tacos. The little tacos came with, I think there were 2 tacos on a thing, and then you got some chips and some pico de gallo. They were pretty tasty. And of course, my niece had to get some more donuts. She loves them lard lad donuts. From there, we went over to Cafe La Bomba and had some plates. This was probably my least favorite place on day 2. The only thing I had was a Sprite because my tummy was getting full. But the other people had some desserts and plates that were okay. At this point, we decided to switch parks and headed over on Hogwarts Express. Went over to the Three Broomsticks restaurant and had some fish and chips. And those fish and chips were pretty tasty. Now that apple pie there, it was an apple pie with some raisins and apples and cinnamon and a crumble on top. Now that was delicious. Of course, we tried some drinks again. After we filled our guts at the Three Broomsticks, we decided we wanted to go on a kiddie ride. So we went on that train around Circus McGurkus. That was pretty fun. And then headed on over to Kong and Spider-Man. Or was it Superman? Spider-Man? I think it was Spider-Man. It was Spider-Man. My brother fell asleep on both rides, which was pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed. We headed over to the arcade after my brother's nap and played some games for a good half hour, 40 minutes. It was a good way to wake up. So then on our way out, we headed over to the Cinnabon, and I was sad because they didn't have cinnamon rolls. When I got there, all they had were these cinnamon ball things. They're like donut holes covered in sugar, and they didn't have any dipping sauce. So being how I wanted breakfast for the next morning, I asked for 10 of them, which they kindly obliged and gave me 10 of them. I dumped them all in a bag, and then as I was dumping them, they started bringing out these centers, which were like torn up cinnamon rolls with some icing on them. So being how there were 5 in our party at that point, Sarah had already gone home, I got 5 of those. And of course, got 5 premium waters at the same time. And then we headed home. It was 2 a.m. at this point, and we were way past our bedtimes. So as we headed home, we said goodnight. Sunday, we headed over to the Cowfish Burger and Sushi Bar at Universal City Walk. It was quite delicious. And the best part, we didn't have to pay for lunch. We used our gift cards that we got. Each one of us got $15. My wife and I had $60 to spend on lunch, so we had some nice burgers and some appetizers. It was quite delicious. I would recommend going there again. So let's see if I succeeded or not. Was our $375 worth it for 2 nights? I would say yes. I tried every food I wanted to try and then some, and I had a stomach ache the next day on both days. I would go for it if I were you. Eat as much food as you possibly can, and if you don't like it, just throw it away. But if you do like it, eat as much as you want. We saved tons of money doing it this way, and I would recommend it to anyone. Not everyone's going to eat as much food as we did. There'll always be 1 or 2 in the group that won't make it worth it. But if you have a big eater like me, you'll make it worth the price. And what's even better is there's nobody there. We walked onto rides. There was not a soul in sight. It was great. I would highly, highly recommend doing Orlando Informer. In fact, I think my brother and I are going to make it a yearly tradition. Thanks for watching. If you got any comments, leave them below.